Hello and welcome to another episode. I am Brian, the Unskilled Commander, and this is Unskilled Commander High Octane. Just think, maybe someday I'll have actual special effects and cool sound effects so that it actually sounds like a race car speeding up for High Octane. But regardless, this is episode 2, where we take one of my decks and set it up, stack the deck, cheat it out, however you want to say it, but we give it the absolute perfect opening hand and then perfect next 10 cards in order to see just how fast each deck can possibly win the game. Not just get scary or big board state, but it has to actually finish the job and win based off of an assumption of a 4-player game. It has to be able to take out the other three opponents. Today's deck is one of my all-time favorites, Kemba Ka Regent. 2 white and 1 other to play Kemba. She's a 2/4. And at the beginning of your upkeep, put a 2/2 white cat creature token onto the battlefield for each equipment attached to Kemba. She was one of the first commander decks I ever really built and took the time to think about and really build. That's why she's one of my favorites. And she also does pretty solid. Originally, she was built around the concept of just making cats, like put the equipments on her, whatever equipment, so that she pumps out a bunch of cats, and then there was a ton of cats in the decks itself to just have a cat army. It was cat tribal. However, I learned early on that with a deck like this, using equipments, you almost want to just focus on the commander damage, and therefore get better equipments onto Kemba and just focus on that. So I started buying better equipments, which meant I had to take out some of the cats from the deck itself. Not all of them, but enough that now it's largely equipments and things like that. And so the concept is to get her equipped to swing in for commander damage. Hopefully make some cats as well for blockers and possible other attacks along the way. However, with High Octane, this setup is designed similar to what you probably saw if you watched the Perfect Draw episode of the Unskilled Commander. Unblockable, lethal, infect damage on Kemba. So let's dive right in and show you how it's going to be done. This is the perfect opening hand, I feel, for Kemba with this setup. We're going to draw for turn. We're going to play a Plains for turn, tapping that into a Soul Ring, and tapping that into Arcane Signet, and tapping Arcane Signet into Sigarda's Aid. Now, you may be asking why I have something like Arcane Signet in a monocolored deck, but white is notorious for not having very good ramp and just being a difficult deck to be monocolor because of that. Not very many cards that support getting any kind of, ramp. I mean, there's land tax. There's only a handful. They've gotten a few more in the last year or two. But still, you need to compensate for that by having a lot of mana rocks in there, and especially mana rocks that make sense. And since this can tap 4 white, it helps give you that option of actually paying for colors in spells, as opposed to just being like a Soul Ring. So that is our turn. Well, turn 1, excuse me. We also played Sigarda's Aid. Darn it. An enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. Meaning you don't need to pay the equipment cost, so now you're just paying to play the equipment, which saves you mana, which means you can play more equipments on your turn. Or you can play bigger ones early and get them equipped immediately, and things like that. So that is our turn 1. Pretty solid turn 1 for any deck, I think. We then pass turn. Bing, bing, bing. Our opponents play lands and, maybe some small things, maybe a Soul Ring here or there, and they get back to us. Turn 2, we are untapping, drawing our second card, and we are going to play another Plains, the only 2 Plains we actually need in this setup. We'll tap Arcane Signet, Soul Ring, and a Plains for 4 mana to play Thran Dynamo. We will then tap Thran Dynamo to play Luxodon Warhammer, which is equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has trample and lifelink. Now, you'll note that Kemba is not actually on the battlefield, So Luxodon Warhammer doesn't equip to anything. It just goes onto the battlefield. I could try and play this slightly different to try and get Kemba out first and then start dropping equipments using Sigarda's Aid to, ideally start swinging with her on turn 3. But we've established that the real goal is lethal infect. So getting a little bit of commander damage on somebody on turn 3 is kind of irrelevant, doesn't really help us in any major way. So and we've established that there's no counter spells, there's no bounce spells, there's no board wipes, there's no interactions from our opponents coming at us. So we can go ahead and take the slow route of establishing our board state before, dropping the hammer down and flooring it, as it were. Keeping with the whole high octane theme, as it were. But that is our turn 2. And with Loxodon Warhammer, the trample and lifelink is kind of irrelevant as well. The lifelink will be nice because we're probably going to start getting hit by opponents because they're going to see us building up a decent, setup here. Oh, we got Sigarda's Aid already. We got Loxodon Warhammer. We're now becoming a target without even Kemba on the field. So once that does take effect, that'll help us a little bit, maintain. But okay, we're done with turn 2. We pass. Bang, bang, bang comes around to us again. We untap. To turn 3, we draw the last card we actually need. Not the last card we're going to draw, but the last one we need for this setup. The old grafted exoskeleton. So here's where we start getting things ready. We're going to tap 2 planes and Arcane Signet for another white to actually play Kemba. We will then tap Thran Dynamo to equip Loxodon Warhammer to Kemba. Now making her a 5/4. Finally, we will tap Soul Ring to play one of my favorite cards, Trailblazer Boots. It is a 2-drop that only costs 2 to equip it, and it says equipped creature has non-basic land walk. This is still a relatively cheap card. I haven't looked it up in a while, but I know it was like less than $1 when I bought my copy. Might be $1 or $2 now. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's still pretty cheap. I don't know why. Not like this is the best card in Magic ever made, oh my god, but it's still really, really good and underrated, I think. There are plenty of players that have monocolor decks in Commander, as evidenced by this very, monocolor white. Friends I have mono green, mono black, whatever, of course. However, in Commander, there's a ton, like the majority are going to be 2 colors or more. In order to make a 2-color deck work decent, you're going to need non-basic lands. Even just, things like a Rogue's Passage could be in a monocolor deck. That counts. So this essentially means, once it's equipped, that your creature can get through unblocked as long as they have 1 non-basic land. And like I said, a lot of decks run them, so this really gives you a high ratio of being able to just get damage through no matter what it is. So playing the 2 to tap it, Sigarda's Aid auto-equips it. Kemba is now a 5/4 unblockable. We could, we can't attack with her because she has Summoning Sickness and just came in. So because this is turn 3, and that's fine. Because again, we don't want her going out right now. Still might be taking some damage. We can just, if someone swings in, we just don't block. We could be down to, who knows, maybe like 20 life at this point if we're taking hits from all 3 players. Now, we pass turn. Swings around the table. We now come to turn 4, where things actually speed up. We untap. We draw a irrelevant card for turn, and I didn't stack these next ones so that, that land is sure to land. We could even play that land. Who cares? What is important is we tap Thran Dynamo, a land, for the 4 necessary to play Grafted Exoskeleton. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Infect. Whenever a Grafted Exoskeleton becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent. Also, first of all, let me back up a little bit. For accuracy's sake, on turn 4 upkeep, we did get 2 cat tokens, 2/2 cat creatures. So now we've got some blockers, which is always nice. We then draw the card for our draw step, and then we tap these 2 to play Grafted Exoskeleton, which auto-equips thanks to Sigarda's Aid. It also gives it +2/+2, so Kemba is a 1/2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Finally, all we got to do is tap 1 land to play Commander's Plate. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 and has protection from each color that is not in your commander's identity color. Which means this makes it unblockable for anything other than white. So if your players are having a mono green deck with no non-basics, Kemba now has protection from green. She can get through. That auto-equips thanks to Sigarda's aid, and like I said, it was +3/+3, giving it the key number of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is lethal infect damage. Infect, of course, when it hits players, it gives them 1 poison counter for every damage they take. 10 poison counters, you lose the game. And I like going for the infect because it just seems like it should be faster, right? Because total damage, 40 life, commander damage, 21, infect, 10. It's the smallest number, easiest to get to, theoretically. So we are now on turn 4. We've equipped those last things. It's time to start swinging. We move to combat and swing Kemba at whatever makes sense. Biggest threat, person that's been hitting us the most, whoever, but let's just say it's the person directly in front of us. Boom, 10 infect, you're dead. And we just gained 10 life because of Luxodon Warhammer's lifelink. So if we were down to, let's say, 20 life, we're back up to 30 already. The likelihood of the last 2 players being able to kill us off of damage is now significantly less because we have 2 blockers as well. We pass turn, they start scrambling, maybe they swing, maybe we just let it go through, who cares? Right? Depending on how much damage it is. Throw some damage directly to their face, they're doing whatever they can, but again, no actual removal, so it comes back to us, turn 5. We untap, we now make 4 cap creature tokens, and we draw a card for turn. Again, irrelevant. It is a blade. This particular time, it's a blade of selves. Equipped creature has mirrored, which means if we attacked, it would make copies of Kemba swinging at other players. But as my friend Dell, who guests on this show once or twice and has his own good Magic channel, the mirrored effect doesn't counter legendary rule, which I forgot about, so I actually need to take this card out of this deck and find a better replacement equipment, because the copies of Kemba that come in would just self-destruct anyway, so it wouldn't help, like I originally kind of was thinking it would. So regardless, we don't even care what this is. Even if it's a good equipment, we don't care, because we've got the 10 lethal infect. Beefing it up higher is irrelevant. Boom, we go to combat. The person diagonal to us is now dead, or whoever the most, biggest threat is. We pass turn, it's just 1 person. They do what we can, but we've got ourselves 6 blockers. They do their best. They don't kill us because we just gained another 10 life. And it is now turn 6, the final turn for this Kemba ramp fast speed deck, or deck tech, or whatever you want to call it. We make another, I don't have the 2/2 tokens, but I make another 4 2/2 cat tokens. We now have, 10 cat tokens on the field for blocking and whatnot. We draw our irrelevant card, and we swing for the final kill directly to our right. Boom, 10 infect damage, they're dead. And Kemba wins the day. Fatality. But there you have it. The best Kemba can do is turn 6 for the final actual win. Maybe that, I think that's pretty solid. I like that. Now, but this is Perfect Storm. That means Kemba can't win on turn 6 in a regular game. Although, because of the tokens and stuff, this is probably about where Kemba hits when things go right. I would say between turn 6 and 8, Kemba can probably win if I get decent draws and a good opening hand, and there's not too much interaction, because if this was slightly different and they were weaker equipments or whatnot, and I was going for commander damage, I would be hitting the same person over and over, but the cats could be going at someone else. Plus, I have buff spells in here like Glorious Anthem and Cage Sun, which buff all my creatures, so they could be 3/3s or 4/4s instead of just the 2/2s. So with the right setup of luck, I think she can kind of go off at like 6 or 8 for real good speed, but here we have it. The absolute best she can do is turn 6. I don't know. If you see something different, if you know some cards that could somehow speed that up, let me know in the comments. But I'm pretty satisfied with the way Kemba runs and what she can do, so I'm not concerned that the best it can do is 6. That's fine for me. We'll see what happens when we get to some of my decks that probably can't even win perfectly until like turn 10 or something. Then we might have to have some discussions. But what do you think? I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you got some ideas. Please check out some of my other shows on the channel. Maybe hit the old subscribe-a-roo button if you wouldn't mind. Maybe hit a like button or two on your way out the door, and I hope you do come back. I will see you next time.